Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Nikki O'Neill. I am a digital technologies development librarian here at NC State University Libraries. I will be keeping track of the chat today, so if you have any questions, feel free to add it into the chat and I will answer your questions. Today, we are going to be building and customizing a personal website using GitHub. We're going to use something called a static site generator, which basically makes creating like HTML and CSS a lot easier because it's built into a specific framework. So first, I'm going to show you some examples that I have done. So for example, let's see, we find a couple here. So this one's actually my personal website, and we can go to it. And as you can see, this is just kind of a list of projects I've worked on throughout my career, along with the skills I've gotten from them. You can actually go ahead and click on each, and it will actually just link out to wherever that project is located. And then you can also click on like a skill and see like what of these projects have that skill built in. Now, I actually used something called Jekyll, which is a static site generator. It is also one of the most popular. There are a couple other out there, Hugo, Middleman, etc. The nice thing about Jekyll is and the reason we're going to be using it today is with Hugo and some of those other generators, you have to add an extra step. GitHub is actually integrated with Jekyll, so you don't have to add an extra step in order for it to build a website for you. So I actually use a theme, which is a pre-built out of the box, something that you can have. And here's a link to the original theme. So what I ended up doing is taking this theme, which is like this website, looks very similar to mine, but editing it so that it would work for my needs. So for example, this link right here, if you click on it, it's actually a blog post. What I wanted for my personal website was not a blog post. So I ended up changing it so that when you click on it, it links out to a specific page. Some other things I did was add like these skills in the sidebar. So I'm going to be showing you how to do some kind of stuff like that today, as well as how to get like something up and running. Let's see. I also did this site back when I was working at UCLA. Again, this is kind of an out of the box. It was out of the box, and then we also changed it so you could do things like participants and have them faceted by when they were participating, which is not something that was out of the box in this theme. It's something you kind of had to build in. So how do you find these themes? So normally what I do is just Google Jekyll themes. And then there are a bunch of options. Something that I think is pretty recent is the second link, which is Jekyll's main site. Actually has a list of like all these different galleries available, which is actually really nice because I always forget which one of these I use. So we can go to each of them, and it's really, there isn't like one is better than the other. It's kind of preference based. This one is nice because you can search it, but there are like different themes for different things you're trying to do. So this one's actually a podcaster theme. So if you had your own podcast, you could build a website for your podcast. And if you click on the demo link, you can actually see like what it looks like. So this person, it has like a home page and links, and you can play these podcasts, which I'm not going to do. And then you could click on an episode and it would have information, and apparently also a Rick Astley video. So there are like a number of things you can do, or a number of themes available. It's really kind of, and you kind of have to like look and play around and see like what do I want and what's best suit my needs. Sometimes the links are broken, which is annoying, but unavoidable. So this website actually has themes that you can pay for, which I don't suggest doing. It's not really worth it, especially since you can customize the themes to your use. So here are these show the featured themes. So there are like less of them, most starred, so most used, etc. And maybe you'll find what you're looking for here. This website also offers non-free themes, but then you can pass it down to free themes, which you probably want. Again, I suggest doing. I don't suggest spending money on this. Let's see. So there are a bunch. And there was one I specifically chose for this because I thought it was a good, kind of, well, luckily I bookmarked it. But again, you can always click on a theme if it's something you think you want. Click on the demo, kind of go between the websites. So this is very much blog based. It's just like a very simple blog. Not going to meet our needs. But this is actually the theme that we're going to be working with for today. So I think it's a nice kind of meets many use cases, which is nice. So it's got a home page. It's got like a blog feature. You can go about and view a gallery of images. So maybe you want to look at images. There's a portfolio page, so you can like have different, what are you working on? It has a search interface built in. Not all of the Jekyll sites do. This one does. You can look at tags based on posts. And you can also do a dark light. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the repository button. That's the first thing we're going to do. So I'm at this repository, and you need to be logged into GitHub for this. And once you're logged in, you're going to go ahead in the upper right-hand corner, click on fork. And let's see, we're going to copy the main branch only because we don't need like basically all the work they're doing. And we're going to go ahead and say create fork. And I'm going to go ahead and change the repository name. So before we go forward, and I need to go back, there are a couple of things that should be, made a little clear. GitHub Pages works in a very specific format. So if your repository is named your username, so my username is Deanna O'Neill. If your repository is named your username.github.io, then the URL for your website will be that repository name. So that's kind of basically how the usernames or how the URLs are created in this one specific use case. And you can only do this once. So you can't have multiple repositories with this name. This name can only be used once. Now, what happens if your repository is not named that? Well, then basically what happens is your URL is going to end up like this. It's going to be your username.github.io and then whatever your repository is named. So in this case, this one is called Adam-blog. And so my URL is going to be Adam-blog. So that's kind of how URLs are built. So when we're forking, I don't really want the repository name to be this. So I'm going to go ahead and name it, let's see, we're going to say live stream 2022. Yeah. So let's name it that. And we're going to go ahead and create that fork. And so one of the first things we're going to do is actually get this website set up. So the way you do that is go into settings, and then we're going to go to under code and automation. There should be a pages link. And we're going to go ahead and say under build and deploy, there should be something called source. And if you click on it, there's also this GitHub Actions thing, which is in beta. Most of the time, I do not suggest trying anything in beta. They tend to be buggy. So we're going to just stick with the built-in tried and true method. And we're going to deploy from a branch, and then we need to choose a branch. I'm going to go ahead and just rename this to main. So we don't have this antiquated master name for our branch. Okay, so we're going to go to pages, and we're going to choose which branch we want to deploy from. And we're going to go ahead and select main, and then you can choose root or docs. So we're going to choose root because that's where we want, where our Jekyll site is located. For some people, like having a docs folder is, they'll have like all their Jekyll site stuff in a folder called docs, just to separate it out. So like if you have, let's say, a bit of code, and then you also have a website associated with that, like how to use that, like open source software or whatever, that would go into a docs folder. But we're going to go ahead and save that. And what we should see, hopefully, eventually, is that once it's finished building the site, we should see not only a link, but we'll actually have a site, like an up and running site. So, and the best way to know when it's done is just to refresh the page, which was kind of boring. It takes a minute. Oh, here's another way of telling. There's a tab at the top called Actions. And you can go into that tab, and you can see this has a little yellow like circle thing. And you can actually watch the progress of your site being built. So right now it's in the build setting, still working. Looks like the build's complete. Now it's deploying. It's getting ready to deploy. So it's gonna do this part. The build status part is done, and now it's deploying it. And soon we should have a working site. Okay, so that is done. So we should have a working site. So let's go into settings and to pages. And you can see we have something that says your site is now live at, and then the URL. And you can go ahead and visit that site. Something is wrong, but we can go ahead and fix that. The other thing we're going to do is go ahead and copy this link. So this is just like a preference thing, but it's something I like doing on all my sites. I've gone back to the code tab. One of the things I like doing is going into the settings where it says about, and see how there's a website URL. I like replacing it with the correct URL. This makes it really easy to find the correct URL for whatever site you have running. So you don't have to like deal with any kind of nonsense. Okay, so how might we figure out like what is going on here? So what I'm going to do is right click and say inspect. And then in this inspector, there's a tab called console. And the thing I'm getting is failed first script with source this my username.github.io/type-on-strap/assets/js/main.min.js. So somewhere that old repository name is in my code. So I'm going to go search for it in this repository. It says it can't find it. Maybe it is, it's possible it's case sensitive. Still couldn't find anything. Okay, well, then it must be somewhere else. Let's see if we can find where this line is coming from. So it's coming from the index page, and it's coming from this line. So let's go see where it might be. Now, this is not kind of built in, but based on my experience, I'm thinking it might be an issue with the config. And it is. So we're going to go ahead and edit this. So the problem is the base URL, which is basically, see how there's a URL set and a base URL? So the URL is like basically your username.github.io. And then your base URL is that like the repository name. Now, by default, I tend not to set these. You do need to set it if you're using it with like some other website, but for the most part, GitHub always like, this is a variable that you can use when using your code, but GitHub will automatically set it for you based on your username and your repository name. So I tend to just comment it out. But while we're here, I'm also going to change the title because this is going to actually change the site title. So if you look on this page, you can see like in this tab, it says type on, and then it's slightly cut off, but type on strap. I'm going to go ahead and change this to Nikki site. And let's see. You can change the description as this comment says. This is used by search engines. You can also change like other things, avatar, header text. I'm going to go ahead and change this. We're just going to say welcome. And these tend to be slightly different based on whatever theme you're using. For the most part, if it's a good theme, it's going to kind of be explanatory. Like the field should be pretty explanatory. If they're not, that's a problem. And if they don't have like a comment like this, comments are anything after like a hash mark, at least in this format, then that's a problem because you don't know what you're doing. Oftentimes, the page will also have a README, which I will point out as well, that will give you instructions on how to update a site. Oh, and for future reference, the way I comment out large blocks of code is I'm on a Mac, so I use the command button. I think it's control in on a Windows machine. I'd have to double check that. I'm pretty sure it's control. And I hit the question mark slash button. And that's how you can comment and uncomment out highlighted text. So let's see. The blog that says excerpt true, and then there's a comment that says or truncate or false to disable. Post navigation true. This looks like some stuff about other stuff. It looks like you can also set up like comments, but you have to use a different external app, which I tend not to do. This has it paginating blog posts to 5 blogs per page. And then also you can set the URL, which I will explain a little later. So there's some stuff in here that's like kind of basic setup stuff that you really shouldn't need to fix. And I'm going to go ahead and commit these changes. So for those of you not familiar with GitHub, committing is very similar to saving. So I'm going to go ahead and commit, and it should update my page. So while it's doing that, you can actually see it builds, and it normally takes about a minute because it needs to like build an entire site. While it's doing that, we're going to look at the README. So this is a README that basically tells you the basic things you need to know about this theme. So it is responsive. It has a portfolio gallery. There's a bunch of other stuff. It looks like you can do diagram rendering with Mermaid.js. I don't know what that is, but it's interesting. I enjoy a good diagram. Oh, that's kind of cool. Let's see what else. Okay, so there's stuff about how to use it. This is something you can also do by installing locally and running. So these are the instructions on basically how to run and install locally. I'm just going to go ahead and do everything for the sake of, ease today on GitHub. And then this also includes the structure of all the files, which actually is incredibly helpful, and not all places do this, or all themes do this. So this has like all your pages. So this is another thing that, there we go. And it looks right. And it's been updated. But so see how it says like about.md. So if I click on this about, you can see that is that about MD page. Or if you look at this URL, it's that URL plus gallery. So each file name is really matched to like whatever that page name is. And then there's stuff about data, icons, etc. And there's information about configuring it. So basically it was like, okay, so this is what we just did. We went to this _config.yaml file and updated the base URL and put in our username. I actually just commented it out, but you can also do what they're saying. There's also information on how to configure the blog and doing some branding and some customization. So like on the header text and the footer text. So let's see. Where's the header text? It changes to welcome. Okay, so footer text is like down in the bottom. And that's powered by Jekyll. We could change that if we want. Can add Google Analytics. There's also information on how to do some of this other stuff. How to enable that mermaid diagram. It's interesting. We might try that later. How to do change icons. So there's a bunch of stuff on like how to do different things. Let's see. What else? Things about changing layouts, etc. Interesting. Okay, so that's kind of like all the basic how to get started, etc. Okay, so what if I wanted the gallery to be my home page? Like, what if I wanted this page to be what people saw when they went here? What do we do? Well, this kind of goes into structure, and all Jekyll themes, or a lot of Jekyll themes, are structured very similarly. So let's go into pages. Sometimes they're not in pages, sometimes they're kind of out, but for the most part, most things are structured very similarly. Actually, it's not going to be in pages. Apologies. I'm actually not, oh, here it is. So almost all Jekyll, I think this is true for pretty much every static site you're going to run into. Index.html is all pretty much, and sometimes it's index.markdown, which is that .md, but index is like a shorthand for saying this is the home page, and it won't show up in the URL. Though you can actually add it to the URL and it will still show the same page. But basically, when the computer basically knows when you see index.html, you don't have to add it to the URL. That is, so it's using something, okay, so maybe I can find a different page. Jekyll is set up to have a very specific format with something called front matter. And yeah, this gives a better example of front matter and then like actual content. So front matter is this stuff, and it's always between 3 dashes. And so basically it's giving something called a layout, same as we saw on the index.html page, a title, there's a subtitle, there's a permalink, which with Jekyll you don't have to set, but you can. So like if I wanted to change, if I change this to gallery 2, what's actually going to happen, I can actually show how changing that. If the URL will change to gallery 2. So let me save the file and it'll give you a better, once I save it and it rebuilds, it hopefully will become more clear. There's another, so basically you can put all these variables on it. And then you can also put, and that's what goes in front matter is all these variables. So that title field is probably going to populate like what's shown up here. And also probably right here, because if you look at this, it just says this is a photo gallery made from the static files, which is what's here. So where this is coming from is right now a mystery. We're gonna fill out that mystery. And then there's this tag, which says include gallery.html gallery path equals page.gallery path. So basically this gallery path is a variable we're using here. So to give more context, let's go into the, let's see. First thing I'm going to show you is this layout. So we're going to go into this underscore layouts folder. And we're going to click on this page. So the nice thing about layouts is you can actually also, they can have front matter as well. So as you can see, this layout has another layout called default. And then within this page layout basically says if the page, okay, so this page, where are we getting this? It's a variable defined by Jekyll that basically says this is the page basically. And it grabs data from that front matter portion we were talking about. So basically it says page, if this page has a front matter that's feature image, then do this. And then or add a class. And then make the header have a background of feature image. And then if there's something about hiding title, then hide the title. Otherwise, this page should have a title. And if it has a subtitle, also include that. And then if the page has a bootstrap element, which it looks like this one doesn't, then do this. Otherwise, just add the content. Now, what is this content? Content is another kind of Jekyll thing where it's actually everything that's not the front matter. And I'm going to go ahead and save this so we can see see what happens when we change the permalink. So we changed the permalink from gallery to gallery 2. So the content is basically everything that is not in this like table. And then what it's going to do is if there's tags, go ahead and join them with a, I don't remember what this thing is called, but join them with that symbol. And then there's also something about an include again. So, but before we do that, I'm going to first go to the default layout. So if you look at this, it said, I want the layout for pages to be default, which does, like, how does it do that? That's really nice. But basically the default layout, which looks like this, is it basically is a header, the nav bar, whatever that content is, which is going to be the content from the page layout, and a footer. And that's basically how we get this, this menu on every page, is because every layout uses that default. And so the menu will show up on that page. I know this is like a really difficult concept to understand. I think the best way to show it is kind of what happens if we get rid of the default. So I'm going to go into this page and set the layout to null. Or I think it's not. Doesn't really matter. And save it. And I just kind of want to show you like how those things change, because I know right now it's very kind of abstract and very snake eating its tail, where it seems to be very loopy. And I understand if you don't quite understand what's going on. It is a lot that I'm kind of throwing at you. So I'm going to go ahead, and it should be building. Let's see. Okay, one of the things I can't show you because our previous change has gone into effect. So if I click on this gallery, the link has changed from just /gallery to gallery 2, which is what we expected. So basically changing that permalink variable changes what shows up in the URL. So we can go ahead, and I'm going to wait until this is finished. One of the things in GitHub is if you make a change and then while the site's building, make another change, it will cancel that other build and start a new one. So I can actually show you that. So what if I change that to that, commit change, see how it's building. There's a new site there's a new build happening. And in a minute, what we should see is this one has a little caution sign. So if you click on it, you can see that it stopped building. The operation was canceled. So cancel your previous build and just start over. Something to keep in mind. But what you should see is, I don't know if we remember, I changed, let me go back to layouts. I changed this page so that the layout was none. And the gallery page has that layout of page. And if you look, it now shows there's no menu, there's no, kind of what we had on from the previous pages. Now, if I go to the home page, which has a very specific layout, you still have that like menu. But since I got rid of that layout, that default layout on the gallery layout, then it's not going to show up. Portfolio has a different layout, so does About. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and change that because we don't want. So we want this layout default. So for most sites, the default layout is going to be something that shows up on pretty much every page. And then the different other layouts are going to be very like page specific. So for example, if we look at, let's see, what has a different layout? Let's see, I think the about page has a different layout. So let's go look at that. Because I don't know what layout it does have. So if we go into pages and we look at the about page, you can see the layout is page as well. Well, that should have updated. I'm guessing it was a caching issue. Let's see. Yes, okay. I did a hard refresh and now our about page is showing up very similar to our gallery page. And now that we've updated the site again, it's showing up correctly again. But basically, different pages might have a different layout. So the about page and the gallery page, let me do a hard refresh, have a very similar layout. So does the portfolio. But this tags page maybe has a different like thing that it wants to do. And what it wants to do is defined by your layout. I know this is slightly confusing. Hopefully it'll be less confusing as we go on. The next thing we want to do is look at these includes. So I don't know if you remember, but no, not the index. The layout, the page layout, I think, had this include default tags list liquid tags. And so did, what's the other? Was it default? No, it was, we were looking at, the gallery page. So let's go look at the gallery page again. So it has this include gallery.html, gallery path equals this. So I'm going to go to this includes folder, and in it, there are other folders. So the default, and then it also links to this. But let's look at this portfolio.html. So what it does in this include is basically says everything, and let me go ahead and go back to, we're going to need this config.yaml for context. It says site.portfolio, and it says for items. So for those unfamiliar, this for is a for loop that basically says for X in a list of things. So like the equivalent of a grocery list, go through each item. And then each item in that list actually has a bunch of information. So each item in the portfolio pages has a URL and a title. Bless me. And an image, and go ahead and create like this little HTML portion. So basically what's happening here is if you look at this portfolio, it's saying, wrong thing, and it's doing it in a grid, which is what these classes are for. It's gonna say for each item, get the URL, the title, and the image associated with each of these things, which each has. So this is slightly different than how Jekyll, so Jekyll has two ways of doing this. A built-in way is that everything, and you don't have to set anything, so this site.portfolio, where is it getting that? So it has, Jekyll has a built-in that's basically site.post. So everything in this underscore post folder would be looped through. So you basically, post folder has a bunch of posts and you can actually loop through them. The portfolio is coming from this underscore portfolio folder. So there's a file in there, and it's basically looping through each one. And if you click on them, you can see each item has a featured let me go ahead and edit this. Like this, an image, URL, a date, it tags, and that is where that includes it's getting all the information from the front matter. There are some things that Jekyll naturally kind of straight builds out. For example, the URL, you don't have to set that. But things like if you want an image associated with a specific post, you have to do that. This is part of what's called a collection. So everything that's not a post has to actually be defined in this _config file. So let's say you wanted to do something, you wanted to do not just portfolio, but you also wanted to do set a group of, let's see, I don't know. What's a good example? Code examples. Let's say you wanted to do like a page that not only had your portfolio, but you wanted to do another page with code examples. What you do is define the collection almost exactly the same way, except you change this permalink. So right now this permalink is saying the permalink should be collection and then whatever the name of the file is. So if you actually click on one of these, it's saying it should be collection name, which is portfolio. And then whatever the name of the file name. So for example, this is /portfolio/save. And if I go into this file or into this folder, there should be a safe.md file, which there is. So basically, if you want to do like a separate collection outside of something that's already been defined, you have to define it in that configuration file. This has all really gone off topic to the fact, what if we wanted to change our homepage? So how would we do that? Well, what we need to do is change this index.html file. Right now, it's using a layout of home. So if we go into this layout, you can see this home, which is basically saying this is some CSS stuff, the header, and then it's including the blog. So what if instead we want our homepage to be the gallery and we want our blog to be on a different page? Well, we can do this. First thing I'm going to go ahead and do is open multiple tabs. This will make it easier for me to kind of go back and forth and save some of the code. So I want to go to our pages and gallery page. Go ahead and copy all of this. Or actually, you know what? I don't even need to copy all this. I just want to copy this include portion. And actually, let me change the layout. We don't even have to change the index.html. Let's just change the layout. And we're going to change it. So right now it has this like welcome, which is the text that comes from our _config file. And then this image, and then all this stuff underneath. And it says dark mode, etc. So let's go ahead and change this. Let's see. Well, let's go ahead for now. Change the header. Let's just get rid of this blog portion. Say we want the gallery on there instead. And then this is basically saying grab the information from site header text and say if there isn't anything, change it to this. So we could, if we change that, nothing's going to happen because we actually have this header text defined. But let's go ahead and save this. So why might we do this? Well, maybe images are the thing that we think are most important, things we want people to be seeing. But what if we still want that blog portion? Let's go ahead and go to, let's see. Well, I changed this page. So, oh no, what was I supposed to do? Well, we can go into this history portion and look at the previous file before we changed it. Okay, so it said include blog.liquid. So what I'm going to do now is go into, let's see, pages. And in my opinion, we don't need this gallery page anymore because we moved our gallery to our home page. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this. I'm going to change this to blog. I'm going to change the title to blog. I don't think it needs a subtitle. It doesn't need this. Change that back to capital page. And let's see what happens if we do paste that include blog.liquid. And we're going to go ahead and commit that. So let's see what happens there. And it's going to take a minute to load. So our homepage isn't working. Why might that be? And you know what, I've been keeping an eye on chat, but if anyone, I think this is a good point to, ask questions or etc. Okay, well, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Okay, so why is our homepage not displaying that gallery view? Well, if you remember, I deleted a bunch of stuff from this gallery page when I turn it into a blog. The difference is, if we go to this layouts page and I changed the home one, I didn't include this gallery path, right, in the page data. So I need to go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and change this header, this front matter. And okay, so there are a number of ways you can do this. You can go look at the old file. The old file doesn't have it. There should be information. Yeah. In feature gallery. So it says you need to define this gallery. So also, so the README says it needs to be defined as gallery. However, this calls it gallery path. So I can either change this variable or I can change this variable. Really, the only thing that matters is these two have to match. So let's go ahead and commit those changes and see if that works. Okay. And then the other thing that should have happened during that is we do now have a blog page. So instead of a gallery page, we have a blog page. It says there are no blog posts, which isn't right. So something went wrong there as well. But let's do one thing at a time. So let's go back to our home page. It's still deploying. For those who are not aware, I mentioned a hard refresh earlier. What I mean by that is, let's see, does it show up here? Honestly, I know the command or the keyboard shortcut for it. I don't know if it shows up in the menu. The keyboard shortcut, at least in Firefox, I think it's slightly different in Chrome, is a command, and I think that might be control on a Windows machine, but Command Shift R. On a Mac, Command R will refresh your page. So I just did a Command R. Command Shift R will do a hard refresh where it'll clear your cache for you. So looks like our build is finished. We are still not getting what I expect to see on this page. So what might we do? So what I do is, in order to figure out like what is going on, is go to our, let's see, where am I looking? Layouts, home, and something is going wrong here. So what I do is probably do page.gallery, and for context in Jekyll, and this is using something called liquid syntax. There's a lot of resources on it, and Jekyll has information as well. But doing these double brackets will make something show up on the page. So if you look here, see these double brackets, and it says site header. If you look here, that's our site header text, and it's showing up on the page, versus these little bracket with percentage sign, that kind of like is like a silent include, if that makes sense. It makes things show up, like it kind of renders things versus just like making them show up on a page. So I'm going to go ahead and commit that change. And the other thing I'm going to do is go into the include gallery.html, because it's possible that something is happening, like the variable is not being set there, but it's also possible something's going wrong here. So it looks like for image and site static files, and we're going to do image.path because it's doing an if statement saying that if the path contains that gallery path. I think this solves our problem. So it looks like it does matter what that variable is called. And it looks like that just might have been a typo in that README. So this variable does need to be called gallery_path. So if you remember when I went into this layout, I named this variable gallery because I thought I might be able to. Oh no, nope. Okay. I'm wrong. Okay, so that include gallery underscore path, that is this variable right here. So this variable, what it's named, doesn't matter. So I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so it looks like it's going into all the static files. That loop is working. That is a lot of nonsense. But what I can tell is it's looping through all the static files. So everything in this assets folder. And all our images are supposed to be in, let's see, we set it for assets, image, pixels. So those are all there. So something else must be happening. So let's go back into our includes, and let's go to this gallery, and let's see, we can delete that. And let's just see if anything is showing up here. And that way we'll know if maybe something's not getting caught. The other thing I'm going to do is do an include. Maybe this isn't getting fed correctly. Maybe there's something wrong with it. Go there. and update this. I'm also gonna just double check while that is building. Yep, that URL looks right. Okay, so something is weird. Weird is going on. So let's see what happens. Let's see. Look, still building. Does anyone have questions while this is building? Okay. Okay, so it's finished applying. So nothing is showing up. Okay, so that tells us something is wrong with, oh, yes. Something is wrong with what is getting fed into this gallery path variable. So this is something I have to double check. So we actually define this in the layout, not the page. I need to look up Jekyll, access, layout, front matter, I think. And I'm pretty sure this is what you can do this. So this defines some of the basic front matter. I think we're not supposed to define front matter in, yeah, I think I made a mistake. I don't think you're allowed to define anything outside of the layout in, sorry, a layout inside of a layout, which is very circular. So what I need to do is go, I'll tell you in a minute. Yeah. But this is part of a page. So we just need to define it in our index.html. So we're going to go ahead and update our index.html with this information. And hopefully our layout should be able to access that page gallery variable. But let's find out in a minute. Whew. Something else we can do, just using what's called, in slightly slower, I right-clicked and clicked on inspect. You can click on this and kind of view where the images are. So this tells me that image is in the assets image triangle.png file. So if I wanted to change that image to something else, I could reset it, or I could just change, like add a file with that exact same name into that folder to update. So there are like things you can find out through the console, which I find very helpful. Okay, let's see if that changed anything. Look at that. It worked correctly. We also have these random pieces of text on the page we don't want. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to remove all the stuff I put in double brackets and go ahead and save this. What else did I do? I did the includes file as well. But sometimes just putting like statements where you know things should be like rendering and aren't can be really helpful in pointing to like where the problems are. And pretty much any type of coding. This is not our website. That is our website. So yeah, now we have like a gallery on our page. Are we supposed to be able to click on these? Let's see. This is where having a demo site is very helpful. I guess these are not clickable images. What if we wanted them to be? We could also do that. So let's go ahead and go into that. Let's see, includes and the gallery page. And what if we wanted them to like pop up? Well, first I'd have to figure out how to do that. So pop up images and click HTML. See what? Okay, Stack Overflow is incredibly helpful. So it will, there's a library called Lightbox that does that. I have used that before. Let's see, is there anything else? Hoping not to have to. Interesting. This looks like a lot of, well, maybe not. Oh, look, this is very simple. Let's do this. Okay. Honestly, it's hard to read, so I'm just going to copy it and move it over to here. Okay, so what did I just copy? A link that basically says on click, open, and I want to change this to this because basically this is the image path. So I need to change it to reflect our image path. I'm going to say target window, and I think we can keep all of that. Return false, and then where it says click here, we don't want a click here. We want this to wrap around the image. So I'm going to use that tag. And let's see if this works. While we're waiting for that, our other change should have gone into effect, so we no longer have that random text showing up, which is running our box. But also, I don't like the fact that these don't line up properly. So let's fix that as well. So that's something that can be done with CSS. I'm sorry about all this jumping. I'm slightly lost. Oh, here is a good tip. So when working on a website and being not sure about CSS, you could just like continually update, or you could do something like this. And basically, let's see, each of these have the class grid item. So we can actually go and change some of the CSS. It looks like some of it's already done. But what if I say max height 100 px? I mean, that changes things. Those, it helps if you have like some if you know kind of your sizes. And I think we're gonna have to say height, which can get, if you have like a bunch of different sized images, can get messy. But I think with this, where all the images are about the same size, be fine. Well, I said 900 px. That made it far too tall. Let's say 50%. That's still too tall. Let's say 30%. Oftentimes, you're just kind of messing around and kind of seeing what works. Those images look slightly off. Say 40%. That looks good. And now they're all lined up. So this is something we can go ahead and change. So I want to go find the CSS for grid item, which I know has to be in here because when I look here, it says it's in the main CSS line 18. Couldn't find it, but I have an idea of where it is. So it's in some main CSS file. And since the README told me that in the structure, all my CSS is in here, so it should be in assets, CSS. And there's my main CSS. And it looks like it imports from a file, which we don't have, which is fine. We can go ahead and just edit our file here. Let's go ahead and edit it and just add some extra. So we know we want our grid item to have a height of 40%. Let me just double check that in here. Yeah, that's the name of the variable. Which is good. And we're going to commit those changes as well. So let's see if that CSS isn't going to be there, but what happens when we click? Oh, that is not what I wanted. So you might not have been able to see this. Basically what that piece of code we did when I clicked on it actually opened it in a brand new window, which is not what we want. You probably didn't see it because it opened in a new window that I'm not sharing. But that's not what we're looking for. We want it to just be like a pop-up on here. So let's try something else. Like we want something like this. But I don't think I want to do, that's a lot of work. So let's do, well, before we go to Lightbox, let's see if there are any other solutions. So that was, I just looked at one. Let's look at a couple more options. Let's see. So part of the reason not to do like these where it's like a lot of extra code is you have to keep track of it versus the downside with the library is it adds like a lot of extra code that someone else has written. But it is all bundled. What is this? Looks like this is using something called Fancy Box. And add blank for a new page. Okay, so that just opens it in a new page. And this opens it, I think. Okay, so this actually has a link to W3 School. Let me see. W3 School often has some very like helpful examples, and also it has like a, that's what I'm looking for. It has this kind of playground so you can actually try it yourself if you want to change things. So I'm going to go ahead and, what does this do? Oh, this just does like a help text pop-up. That's not what we're looking for. But if I also wanted to change some of that to better fit my needs, I could, and then like play around with it there. Let's see. Geeks for Geeks is also helpful. They have less of the kind of what sort I'm looking for. Kind of, they just show you the code. You're gonna have to go test it yourself. There isn't like a, what's it called? But it also sometimes has these like GIFs that is helpful. So this is not what we're looking for. We don't want to like just show it on the page. We're hoping for like a pop-up so you can like zoom in and look at it. So I don't think either of this is gonna work either. So, when I search how to create a light box, there you go. That gives me information on how to do it. Interesting. Okay, well, that's a lot of extra code. I would prefer something a little more elegant. Which again is all down to personal preference. When I first started, I did non-elegant code, and that's fine too. Um, like it's really the best code is the code that works. Eventually you might want to clean it up just for long-term maintenance, but sometimes all you need is you know, especially with like something like this where it's what I'm looking for. A static site, which is like basic HTML, you don't have to do as much maintenance on it. Um, it might not be worth it. So this is the kind of thing I was thinking of. But for now, I think we're gonna move on. And that's also something you can find is like if there isn't like a simple solution that you think there is, then maybe you don't want to do the thing that you were originally thinking you wanted to do. So change the CSS. That does not look right. Maybe I want a bigger height. One of the things is this console can sometimes mess up your results, like what you're saying. So I'm gonna move it to left. Well, that's not good. I don't like that either. Oh, let's set max height. That might be what I'm looking for. But these heights are still off. So I want them all to be the same height. So I think sometimes you just have to mess around with things sometimes. It's not good. Don't like the spacing on that. So the reason I added the width is because I noticed when I set the height, it's getting these like weird, like the images are looking kind of funny. So you need the height, the width to like auto adjust to the height. The problem is like setting this stuff can end up being like give you some weird results. This is something I think I need more time to mess around with to get right. I think what we have is okay for now. So I really don't like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and undo this CSS I did. Which again, command question mark should, and see how it's a double slash. So depending on the type of file, the way to comment out, code is different. That's why having that command question mark slash button is really helpful, because if you're not sure what the correct thing to comment out is, then it knows for you. So what else? Oh, we fixed the blog, and now it's saying no blog post. So why might that be? Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and figure out what's going wrong with that blog page that we updated. So that should be under pages. Let's see, go to pages, and then let's go to, let's see, not gallery. Oh, it is gallery. We forgot. So one of the things, which is a smart thing to do, is change the name of the file. Right now it was at gallery, which we don't necessarily want. So let's go ahead and change it to blog so we don't have trouble finding it later. Okay, so there's something wrong with this blog/liquid. So now we know where this include is. And I don't think there's anything about this that is causing problems. So let's go ahead and go into that include. Okay, so for post and paginator posts, is post thumbnail, post URL. Okay, well, let's try going back to this page. Okay, so it says there are no blog posts. Okay, so it looks like paginator.post is not, they can't find it. So why can't it find it? Let's go to our config file. Actually, this might be paginator Jekyll. So this is something you probably wouldn't know unless you've done Jekyll a lot. But I think you can only use paginator on the home page. Yeah, so this says you can use it in a bunch of different pages. Let's see, let's go back. Paginator posts. Posts available for the current page. Layout default title my blog. Well, what I normally do is take this. Oh. Okay, we're gonna do a couple things. We're gonna first look at what this looks like. And I'm gonna do a .inspect, which is just a personal preference. I find it renders things more nicely for me to read. Actually, I think I have to do this. This little line followed by something is called a filter. So let me see if I can go ahead and liquid filter. I think this is the site I most often use. This is not the site I most I think I need to do filters. Yeah, so here's an example. Jekyll has a list of a bunch of liquid filters. So basically you can say site members and then find all the members with the graduation year of 2014. And then I'll return a list of them. So this little thing followed by inspect is just a filter. Let's see. Paginate path, maybe that's it. Oh, let's go look at this. What does our paginated path say? Go back to our config. Post navigation, paginated path. Nope, blog/page number. And our blog should be blog/page number. Yep. This is another time when going to the original site. Not what I'm looking for. There's that. Can be helpful. So there was stuff. Interesting. Okay, so it's saying it's finding nothing. Maybe that's the problem though. Maybe we need to, let's go ahead and go back to our blog page. Sometimes you just kind of have to try things out. So let's go to pages. Let's go to blog. It's possible these permalinks are bumping up against each other. So we're going to name this blog 3 and then maybe these. So what I think is happening is what this does is say, create like all these pages called /blog/page number. The original site did not actually have like a blog page, which makes me think that if you do a page called /blog, then that's going to cause a problem. But again, this is just like a guess. But this is what's making me think this will really read in blog/index.html and send each paginated page into liquid as paginator and write the output to blog where num. So that is my guess. Oh, wait, don't set a permalink. Setting a permalink in the front matter of your blog page will cause pagination to break. Just omit the permalink. Well, maybe that's my problem. Because blog 3 didn't work. So let's just try getting rid of that permalink. Pages. I'm looking for pages. Blog.md. Let's just get rid of this permalink. By default, you should be able to get rid of permalinks anyway. So it shouldn't be that big a deal. So by default in Jekyll, most of the time permalinks are formed based, and by permalink, I mean like the thing that comes after your URL. What comes after is, sorry about that. Is like based on the file name. So it's just going to be /blog anyway. That's what by default they tend to like form as without you setting it. So for example, permalinks often get set. Like if you maybe wanted to name the file blog.md, but maybe you didn't want the URL to be the blog. Maybe you wanted it to be something else. So it should have been updated. Nope. It's also just linking me to blog.html. So I think we need to go back and look at how pagination works. And I missed the big little info button. Pagination only works with HTML files. Does not work with Markdown files. Excuse me. So I think that's our big problem. So because our file was named blog.md, that's a markdown file. This is a simple fix. We can just change the file name to HTML. Within Jekyll, you can use a combination of what markdown and HTML files. It doesn't really matter, and you can still have this front matter. So let's see. Hopefully that works. we're just going to have to wait and see. If you were to do this locally, and part of the reason many people do, I just didn't feel like doing the setup. Plus, I thought it would be like a good experience to kind of see the interactions with GitHub. So when you set it up locally, the way it shows you in this README, the changes are pretty much immediate, which is why often people do like all their development on their home computer. So basically, what you have to do is clone the repository. Well, fork and clone. So basically, we forked it, and what I would have done is gone to this little code tab, copied this, and done git clone. And then that URL that I just copied on my machine. And then you'd install this Jekyll gem. And then you'd install it. So then this is not like full. These instructions are slightly wrong because, well, I wouldn't say wrong, just incomplete for a beginner. So you'd need to do the clone. You'd install the Jekyll gem. And then you need to, once you've cloned, you need to CD into this directory or whatever your directory name is. Mine would be Livestream 2022. So you need to make sure you're in that directory that you've cloned before you run this bundle install. And then you'd also have to update that config, and then you could run this bundle exec Jekyll serve. And then what would happen is you'd have a URL, which would be localhost 4000 or 127.0.0.1 4000 colon 4000 and whatever your base URL, and you'd go into that in your browser, and then you'd do the same thing we've been doing, but that browser URL you'd be able to refresh the same way we've been refreshing this page, and you'd see like the changes. Still not working. Well, it's odd. What might we be doing wrong? Who knows? Okay. Let's see. Pagination works when called from an HTML file called I did not finish reading, which I should have. Always finish reading the sentence. Only works from a file called index.html, which optionally resides in products from a subdirectory via the pagination path configuration value. Okay, so we need to update a couple things. We need to go into our pages. We also, I think, need to go into our config. Nope, our pagination path, that is set the way we like it. So what I need to do is edit this file, and I want to call it blog, or we want a folder called blog, and we're going to call it index.html. So I think, as I already talked about earlier, anything with an index.html gets ignored as like nothing, basically, in a URL. So basically what I did was create a folder called blog and then create like an index.html file. So basically when a URL gets created, and again, this is the same across most coding enterprise, like if you use Ruby on Rails, if you use Python, etc., index.html gets ignored by your URL, like when it gets put together. So I could create another file in this blog folder called about, and then the URL that would get created would be /blog/about. But this is just going to be /blog, if that makes sense. And I hope that this, out of like I think this might be our 5th try, will properly build. We will find out in a minute. Page not found. Oh, that makes sense. Still not working. Let's try a hard refresh. Nope. Wow. Let's see. Oh, we're getting a slash pages slash blog. That's not what, like the slash blog is not what, Okay, so this is also like another Jekyll thing. The pages folder is gonna render correctly, but like anything in there like this is gonna render correctly, but it's gonna get added when you do formatting like this. So I actually need to move this file, I think. It's quite possible I do this again and it doesn't work. A lot of coding is just failing and then eventually getting things right. So I'm going to get rid of this pages and just rename it to move the whole thing. We're going to go ahead and commit that. And see what happens. Another thing I'm going to point out that's really nice about this GitHub pages in general is you can actually set up something called a CNAME file, which basically, actually I have a good example of this. So if you look, it looks like this URL is going to dressup.ucla.github.io. If you actually click on it, the URL is dressup.ucla or .library.ucla.edu. So they actually used a CNAME file with a URL that they owned, and were able to basically tie what's being hosted on GitHub to a specific URL. So like if you own the domain name to whatever your name is .com or whatever, you could actually host all your stuff and just have to pay for the domain name. So that's also kind of nice. Like you don't have to like deal with whatever system is in place there. We got something. It worked. Excellent. So this I can actually get rid of, but it's a nice thing to see. So if you go, and this pagination thing is special specifically to blog posts. So it basically allows you to paginate. So I think this might show, yeah, see there are 3 pages and it like basically auto does this like next thing. So you can have multiple pages. Whereas normally you'd have to do this manually. I will say there's something broken. Yeah. There's something broken with that link, which is I think the next thing we're gonna do. But basically, for most of the stuff within the site, you can access like this, where it's like a list of your gallery images or a list of your posts. So let's go back into includes, blog liquid. Okay, so those links, including the one that is broken, is in this nav portion. But I want to get rid of this, which is like text that's randomly showing up. And then let's see. Let's go ahead and save that. And we need to go into the blog liquid. Okay. So let's see what the problem is. So let's see. Okay, so luckily this person has commented enough to see that this href is only going to this. We need to change that to blog, I think. Let me double check. What is this last one going to? What does that look like? Here, we just need to copy this, except we're going to need to edit it a little bit. So this person was kind enough to basically put comments that show this is that double right icon. But basically right now, this link, which is just leading to the homepage, basically saying the homepage is like where at the beginning. That is not true anymore since we've changed where things go. So we're going to change it to site paginate path, which is what we want. And we want to replace number with, let's say 1. We just want to go back to the first page. What this is doing is actually replacing number with total pages, which is basically how you get to the end. But we want to get to the very beginning. So we're going to say 1. We're going to go ahead and commit that change. So far we have changed our homepage to have like our images. And we could also like do something where maybe we want these images to have comments, or like maybe your site is selling things or showcasing work. Maybe you're a photographer and you want to showcase some of your work. Whatever it is, we could go ahead and do that as well. Hopefully you have like a little more comfort with like going into these and editing them, but like we could go into the includes and go into the gallery portion, and maybe instead of doing what this does now, we could also add like HTML right here that does a caption, and maybe each image has a caption that you set in the because if you remember, there is let's see, where are the images coming from? Actually, all the images. You could set up a like an images folder, and each image could have metadata about it. Right now, I believe all those images are coming from this assets image pixels folder. So right now, it's just grabbing everything from that folder and showing it. Yeah. But you could do something like that. What else is possible? I mean, there are a lot of things possible. You just kind of have to like putter around and mess around with some of the stuff. Okay, what else might we do to the site? That portfolio tab's kind of nice. Maybe you want to change the menu. That's also something you could do. So how to figure that out? So I'd go into layouts and default, because default is the one that should theoretically have what you're looking for. And then my assumption would be nav bar, because, and you know, sometimes you're wrong and you just have to go back, but my guess is nav bar because, you know, it's named in a way that makes sense. So let's go ahead and edit this nav bar. And let's say I want to get rid of, what is this? I think this comment says logo and title, but you could also double check by looking at the website. So it says this has a class of branding. So I'm going to go back to inspecting. And if I click on this, it has a class of avatar. And if I go up, it also has a class of branding. So I know that is what I'm looking at on the site. So what if I want to just get rid of this? And I'm going to go ahead and uncomment or comment. It doesn't want to let me. Just going to copy. Luckily this document already has comments in it, so I know I can just comment it out that way. But I'm going to go ahead and comment out the branding. Maybe I don't want an icon in my upper right hand corner, or maybe I don't want like anything in the upper right hand corner. Let's just get rid of it all. For reference, this is HTML, how you comment things out. You have to do this little bracket, exclamation point, double dash. I literally always forget. I have to look it up almost every time, unless it's already in there. And then you close your comment with this dash dash, what's it called? Bracket. So this has something called toggle menu, which I'm guessing, because this is a responsive site, Yet another thing that's cool in here is you can actually make it really small. So I clicked on this little icon and I can actually change the size of so I can see it at different sizes. So I can see it on a screen that's 50 by 622, which I don't think anyone has a screen 50, but you can see what the site looks like on the smallest to largest device, which is good practice. Another good practice, and something that you might want to check when deciding about your site, but also something you can update when you're editing sites. So let me go ahead and finish going through this first. Okay, so the menu is basically going through site pages. And unless page title equals null or page.hide or name page contains page title, then go ahead and add it to the menu. So what was I talking about getting rid of from the menu? Doesn't matter. Basically, now I know if I want to get rid of something from the menu, I say page.hide. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Another good practice, and I use the browser plugin Wave, is to check how accessible your website is. So I'm going to have to refresh this because it did not render correctly. So basically this is a browser plugin that is acting up. It's not supposed to do that. Let's try this again. For some reason, I literally just used this like an hour ago or right before this started, and it was working fine. So I'm not quite sure. Let's try it on a different page. See, it's working fine there. Not sure why it doesn't like my site. Let's try it again. Something odd is going on with the site that it doesn't like working on here. I'm just going to show it to you on Jekyll's site. So this is a browser plugin that will show you issues with accessibility. So this one has one low contrast error. So basically, if they want to improve the page, they probably shouldn't do this. You can go to this tab and actually like play around and see like what is a better option. So it looks like if they did this in white text or even a light gray, it would pass both of these. Let's see what else. Looks like there's some possible heading issues here. So like all very simple fixes that they could probably do pretty quickly. So it's worth it to kind of apply this. Looks like this one has 9 errors. I really don't know why it's doing this. Very strange. I've never seen that happen before. Might be, I don't know, a new one. Oh, and our site has updated so that there is no icon and the name of the site isn't there. That's also obviously changed some stuff about like the menu that looks a little strange. So that's something maybe, let's see, looks like the variable site header has a padding of 2, 2, and 1%. Might want to change that to 2, 2, and 2%. Look at that, that looks better. So that's something you could change. Let's go into our live stream. SAS, nope. Oh, yes, okay. So if you remember, I went into assets, CSS, main CSS earlier, and it says import this. I'm pretty sure this SAS, which is just another form of CSS, just in a different format, is what it's importing. See that file. And this file is importing all those other files. So I'm guessing it's going to be in this base file. What did this call? This said base variables. Guessing it's going to be in the base file, that because it was on line 18. and they basically dump in order, but we can check. See, what was I looking for? We want the site header variable. So I'm just going to do control find. It's not on this page. Let's go to the next page. Control find, not on that page. Control find, not on that page. Let's try variables. Control find, not on that page. So let's go to the next one. What is this? External reset. Maybe it's it's probably not in there. And try. No. Let's try a search. Okay, so I'm gonna try just a quick, like, maybe this will work. My experience is GitHub doesn't like searching forks of repositories, so I'm gonna, go to the main repository and do a search. And this is the line I was looking for. So it's in SAS, includes navbar. So that's what I was looking for. And I can do a search, and we're going to just go ahead and update that and go ahead and commit those changes. But yeah, I definitely suggest doing a wave. See if I can get any details. Let's see. If you click on this little code thing, it will actually point you to the code that's a problem. So there's no alt text, which is something that should happen on all images, which is yet another reason, like, you might want to, like, have this gallery have not only alt text, but like a caption or information about, like, what your image is. So that might be something you'd want to do to, like, update how the page, like, looks. That might be something else you want to change about the site. Let's try about. And I'm missing like half the errors, but I guess I go into detail. So it looks like there's a low contrast error here, which I understand. So maybe I want to, maybe this isn't like a issue where I change, because this is going to be a problem with anything with like a bit of white. So it's possible you could change the picture, but you could also, looks like there already is a text shadow. Maybe make it bigger. Or maybe do an outline. I think there's a way to do an outline. Let's see, text, outline. Yes. Yes, it's called stroke. Let's try this. And another nice thing about this is it actually will kind of autofill for you. Let's just make that black. And there you go. You get like a little bit, I think I want a less thick line. We'll change it to 1 px. That looks a little better. And you should be able to run a wave on that. And if you look at the details, I'm not sure. Low contrast there. That's the problem, is it's resetting. So yeah, something that like you might want to change. So I now know like I might want to put some CSS around the text to make it see if we can do that really quickly. I think this is the last thing we're going to do because we are running out of time. So we're going to look for the class title. And let's see. I'm going to search period title, which is just a way of defining class in CSS. Let's see. It is all over the place, which is a bummer because you're just going to have to keep going. Oh, except you can filter down to CSS. Or I think it's going to be an SCSS. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. This is what we're looking for. So it's going to be in Sass layouts. Underscore. And this is yet another reason why doing things locally is in terms of changing, is because instead of having to like go into this file and like update and then wait for the update to finish, you would have just been able to update it and then see the do a new wave on it, basically. I need to double check. Yeah. Actually, I can just copy that whole thing. And we're going to paste that in there and commit those changes. And our CSS in our header changed. It's also something you could do, like you could change, like maybe you just want the image in there and not the title of the site. It's really up to you, and you can just kind of play with things. Let's see. I think it's still building. That is our last thing we're going to end up doing. I can stick around if anyone has questions, but that's about it. And our outline is now there. So if we do a wave, and I still have a low contrast error. My guess is it's because, actually, I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not quite sure. But it's something you might need to mess with, and so you can get it so that it people who have problems like reading things with low contrast don't. Because when you build a site, having it accessible to everyone is a really good rule of thumb. And not to mention, it often makes your user interaction or your user interface and your UX experience better. But that's it. And have a nice day, everyone.